The story begins by introducing the world's unique ranking system. In this era, ranking defines not just a person's social status, but also fuels their ambitions. Power, intelligence, connections, wealth, and even jobs, everything is governed by rank. And in such a world, the journey of a young boy begins. Amidst the mountains lies a small, remote place known as Tori Village. In this quiet village, a green-haired 16-year-old boy named Lo is seen chopping firewood. After finishing the task, he gathers the pieces neatly. Just as he completes his work, an elderly man calls out to him, asking for help with his aching feet. Without hesitation, Lo agrees. Suddenly, a pink-haired girl around Lo's age jumps in and kicks the old man, scolding him for always asking Lo to do everything. The girl's name is Yuna. Meanwhile, Lo zones out, lost in thought. The old man, noticing this, says that he only asks Lo for help because he's always standing around idly. Yuna immediately defends Lo, pointing at him and saying that he was just born with that spaced-out personality. As Lo continues to zone out, Yuna grabs his shoulders and shakes him, telling him to snap out of it. She reminds him that the villagers constantly take advantage of his kindness, treating him like a convenient tool because he never refuses their requests. Lo responds calmly, saying he doesn't really mind. But Yuna insists that's not the point. She knows Lo is kind-hearted, but that doesn't mean people should take him for granted. Suddenly, Yuna becomes excited as she remembers something. Leaning in, she whispers to Lo, asking if he wants to go outside the village. She reveals that she's discovered a hidden path that no one else knows about. Unfortunately, an old woman overhears their conversation. The village elder immediately intervenes, striking her cane at Yuna and scolding her for forgetting the village rule. No one is allowed to leave. As Yuna dodges the elder's strikes, she asks why the rule exists, but the old woman refuses to answer, orders her subordinates to lock Yuna up. As the situation calms, a man standing beside Lo asks if he can help draw water from the well. As always, Lo agrees without hesitation. The man chuckles, noting that Lo and Yuna are the only young people in the village, yet their personalities couldn't be more different. He then advises Lo to take a break sometimes, that Lo surely has his own dreams and desires, too. Lo remains silent for a moment before quietly agreeing to help with the water. As they work, Lo reflects on his past. His parents died when he was young, leaving him completely alone. But the villagers treated him like family. He knows they've always looked out for him, so he wouldn't feel abandoned. And that's why he wants to repay their kindness. Lo genuinely loves the village and the people in it. Hearing this, the man becomes emotional and offers to let Lo live in his home. But Lo politely declines, saying he still lives in the house his parents left him. To him, the village and its people are what matter most. He has no interest in the outside world. The scene then shifts to Yuna, who is now locked in a cage for her earlier defiance. She shouts at the village elder to let her out, but the old woman scolds her instead, telling her to be more like Lo. Frustrated, Yuna asks again why no one is allowed to leave the village. The elder responds by saying there's no need. They already have merchants bringing everything they need. But Yuna isn't satisfied with that answer. She dreams of seeing the vast world beyond the village walls. She doesn't understand why they must remain trapped in such a small place forever. Grandma reveals that the villagers are people who are resented. Yuna doesn't understand and asks who they are resented by, but Grandma avoids the question, saying it's not something Yuna needs to know right now, adding that one day, everything will sort itself out. The scene shifts back to Lo, who has just finished drawing water from the well. Suddenly, a rock strikes him on the head. He turns around to see who threw it, and to his surprise, it's none other than Yuna. She signals for him to follow her, and they quietly sneak away. As they walk, Lo asks if she snuck out again. Yuna smirks and replies that escaping has become easy for her, considering how many times she's been caught. Lo sighs and says it's not something to be proud of. Then, with excitement in her voice, Yuna invites him to come outside the village with her. They arrive at the hidden path, one that no other villagers know about. Lo hesitates, saying that Grandma will be angry if they're caught, but Yuna reassures him. It'll just be for a short time, and she has something special she wants to show him. Moved by her sincerity, Lo reluctantly agrees. The two walk through the forested mountains and eventually arrive at a cliff overlooking a breathtaking view. Yuna had brought Lo there to show him the vast and beautiful world beyond the village. Lo is captivated by the scenery, amazed by how wide and wondrous the outside world looks. Seeing Lo so happy makes Yuna beam with joy. Then she pulls out a book and asks if Lo knows the rules of the outside world. When he shakes his head, she opens the book she had secretly acquired from a traveling merchant. It explains that the outside world operates under a ranking system. Adventurers, couriers, doctors, musicians, everyone is ranked. Even weapons, food, strength, and wealth are subject to rankings. Those who appear on these lists are known as rankers. Everyone is in constant competition to climb the ranks. Lo is surprised to learn that the outside world has its own structured rules. Yuna stands up, declaring that the outside world sounds far more exciting than the restrictive life in the village. Then, with bright eyes and unwavering determination, she shares her dream, to become a ranked adventurer. She wants to travel the world, face rivals, and earn respect, to become someone truly admirable. Lo, still grounded in village life, reminds her that they're not allowed to leave. But Yuna brushes that off, saying she's already made up her mind. Holding out her hand to Lo, she asks him to come with her, to leave the village and go on an adventure together. She then reminds him of a memory from when they were 5 years old. A huge bird had attacked her, and Lo saved her, his body glowing with a mysterious green energy. Although Lo doesn't recall the incident, Yuna remembers it vividly. She tells him that ever since that moment, she believed that even if he often spaces out, when he puts his heart into something, he's stronger than anyone else. She's confident Lo will thrive in the outside world and urges him once again to join her. Lo imagines the possibility of going with her, but ultimately, he refuses. He loves the village too much to leave it behind. Frustrated by his refusal, Yuna loses her temper and starts hitting him with a stick. In her anger, she declares that she'll go without him and tells him to stay in the village forever. She won't care anymore. Lo calmly tells her to be careful and then sits quietly, watching her leave. It's the first time he's ever truly considered the idea of Yuna leaving the village. As he remains there, zoning out, the sun begins to set. Realizing night is approaching, Lo decides to return to the village. On his way back, he glances at the sky and spots a floating island drifting closer to a particular location. Suddenly, a beam of blue light shoots down from the floating island, striking the village. The sudden attack startles Lo, and just as quickly as it appeared, the floating island vanishes. A chill runs down his spine, and he's overwhelmed with dread. Forcing optimism into his voice, he begins running toward the village, telling himself that everything is fine, that nothing will happen to Yuna, Grandma, or the villagers. But when he arrives at the location, his heart sinks. The village is gone. In its place is a massive crater, a gaping hole in the ground. Lo stumbles forward, descending into the hollowed earth, desperately calling out to see if anyone is still alive. His voice echoes into silence. Suddenly, a memory surfaces, one from childhood, when Yuna had promised to always stay by his side. The thought of her and the villagers, who had treated him like family, crushes him. His chest tightens, and he collapses to his knees in anguish, tears streaming down his face as he sobs, wondering why such tragedies have to happen. Then, a voice cuts through the silence. You were too late. All you could do was watch it happen. Lo looks up to see a middle-aged man standing on the edge of the cliff. Their eyes meet. The brown-haired man approaches and asks Lo if he is the only survivor from Tori village. Lo, still trembling, nods. The man looks at him with pity but attempts to reassure him. Don't worry. The floating island is gone now. Lo's eyes widen. You know about the island? He asks, his voice breaking. Still crying, he pleads. Please, tell me what happened to my village. What happened to the people? But the man only shakes his head. Forget the village, he says, handing Lo a piece of paper. Go to the location written here. You'll be safe there. Lo refuses to accept that. He clenches the paper, his voice rising with desperation. I can't just forget them. Seeing his determination, the man suddenly yells, Look around you, kid. The entire village is gone. You shouldn't be involved in this. He turns to leave, urging Lo once more. Let go of the past. It's the only thing you can do. Inwardly, the man prays that Lo doesn't dig any deeper. If he does, the man thinks he'll become just another casualty of the floating island. but his words fall on deaf ears. A sudden surge of green energy gathers around Lo, glowing intensely. Even the brown-haired man is startled by its presence. Through gritted teeth and teary eyes, Lo growls, "I will never forget. I'll go to that floating island, and I'll bring every single villager back, no matter what it takes." When Lo was young, a devastating landslide completely destroyed his house and claimed the lives of his parents. Left with no family, Lo felt truly alone. But the villagers took him in and cared for him as one of their own, which filled him with warmth and gratitude. Yuna was always by his side, and every villager was kind-hearted, never turning away from anyone in need. Lo could never forget the love and compassion they showed him. That deep bond fuels his determination. He must go to the floating island and bring everyone back. The brown-haired man is astonished by the massive amount of prana now distorting the space around Lo. Prana refers to the mental energy of living beings. Everyone possesses it, though only a few are aware of its presence. Talented individuals can wield it at will. While prana is normally colorless and transparent, those with immense power can make it visible, and it is said that some races possess unique forms of it. Observing Lo's prana, the brown-haired man begins to suspect that Lo is a survivor of Babel. He had originally intended to prioritize Lo's protection, but he realizes that even if he tried to shelter him, Lo would eventually escape and seek answers on his own. Resolving to test him, the man tosses a sword toward Lo and tells him, "If you truly want to reach the floating island, pick up that sword." Then, he draws his own blade and begins emitting his own prana. "If I see potential in you," he says, "I'll train you." Without hesitation, Lo grabs the sword. Seeing this, the man takes a stance and instructs Lo to charge at him with the intent to kill. They face each other, both ready. Lo rushes in, attacking with everything he has. The brown-haired man blocks the strike and counters, noting to himself that although Lo is a beginner, the pressure and sheer force of his prana are extraordinary. He's now convinced Lo is the real deal. Their fierce battle continues. When the duel ends, the man explains that the place Lo seeks is called the Island of the Gods. Normally, it floats above the vast sea, but on rare occasions, it appears in completely different locations, erasing both people and land as it materializes. He admits he had been working to prevent such incidents, but once again, he was too late. According to one theory, the humans engulfed in that mysterious light may have been transported to the island. Hearing this, Lo asks if touching that light could send him there too. The brown-haired man warns him not to assume that. After all, it's just a theory. Even if the villagers are still alive, no one knows what's happening to them on that island. Lo asks what he should do. The man advises him to start with a direct approach, the adventurer ranking. He tells Lo that he must place in the top 10. Adventurers are tasked with exploring and surveying uncharted lands, and their rankings are fiercely competitive. The top rankers are monsters in their own right. If Lo can reach the top 10, he will qualify to go to the Island of the Gods. He further explains that the island has consistently been ranked as the #1 danger zone. No adventurer who has set foot there has ever returned alive. Finally, the man turns to Lo and asks, "Even knowing that, do you still want to go?" Without hesitation, Lo firmly declares that he does. He will save the people of his village, no matter the cost. Seeing the unwavering resolve in Lo's eyes, the brown-haired man agrees. "Then I'll train you for 1 year," he says. "But I can only teach you the sword. After that, you'll be on your own, to climb the rankings and carve your own path." The brown-haired man stands up, extends his hand, and introduces himself as Adel, the #1 ranked knight and the strongest knight in all of humanity. In response, Lo introduces himself as well. They shake hands, and Adel firmly states that he won't go easy on Lo during training. It is then revealed that Lo is the first person to have ever landed a clean blow on Adel. And so, their hellish year of training begins. Blisters burst on Lo's hands and feet, his muscles tore, bones fractured. Adel pushed him beyond all limits. Throughout the entire year, Adel never once mentioned the Island of the Gods again. It was as if he was silently telling Lo, "If you want answers, find them yourself. And if you can't, then give up." But Lo never gave up. He still believes the villagers are alive, and until he finds proof otherwise, he has no choice but to hold on to that hope. His mind remains plagued with questions. Why did the village disappear? What exactly is the Island of the Gods? To uncover the truth, Lo is determined to climb the adventurer rankings. A year passes. Lo and Adel now stand together on the same cliff where their journey began. Adel asks if he's ready. I've been ready for a long time, Lo replies. He thinks of Yuna, the girl who once dreamed of becoming a ranked adventurer. Yuna, who longed to explore the world beyond the village, is now missing. But now, Lo is the one about to set out. He decides to carry her dream in his heart until he finds and rescues her. Adel gives a final nod. Then go. Now 17, Lo has grown taller, stronger, and far more resolute. He is the disciple of humanity's strongest knight, and his journey to the Island of the Gods has just begun. Tori Village is part of the Kingdom of Volter, though it lies far from the capital city, Trikista. As the capital, Trikista is a bustling and modern metropolis. Within the city, at the Trikista branch of the Appraisal Bureau, a young man is slumped over a desk, fast asleep. Someone is calling out to him, Luke, trying to wake him up. Luke jolts awake, realizing it's already late. He had dozed off and knows he'll be in trouble. Quickly, he gets to his feet and joins a black-haired girl waiting for him. As they walk down the hallway, the girl asks, Were you up all night checking rankings again? Luke flinches at the question, brushing it off by saying it's part of his job. But the girl counters, explaining that precisely because it's his job, he needs to take better care of his health. She continues, I'm on desk duty, but you're responsible for determining people's rankings. That's a serious job. If you're unfamiliar with the role of appraisers, here's how it works. Appraisers are dispatched around the world to evaluate rankers' abilities and update the global rankings accordingly. It's a job that demands deep expertise, impartial judgment, and the ability to accurately assess others' merits and potential. Appraisers must first pass several rigorous assessments, making it one of the most selective professions in the world, entrusted only to those who are truly exceptional. Back in conversation, Luke tells the girl that while he is indeed an appraiser, he's still bottom tier. To do what he truly wants, he has to work harder than everyone else and climb the ranks himself. Hearing that, the girl asks what exactly he wants to do. Luke, brimming with excitement, says there are many things he has in mind. As they climb the stairs, she points out that the fastest way for an appraiser to get promoted is to become the exclusive advisor to a high-ranking individual. Luke agrees but admits he hasn't found a ranker he genuinely admires yet. The girl laughs and says his standards are too high. Luke scowls, complaining that most rankers nowadays are unimpressive. He explains that in the past, the ranking competitions were fiercely contested, constantly shifting. But now, many of the top positions are essentially fixed, defeating the purpose of having appraisers in the first place. Back then, rankings had meaning because they were always evolving. Hearing this, the girl chuckles and says, You're such a ranking maniac. Luke takes it as a compliment. Finally, they arrive at the entrance of a room. Luke wonders aloud if there might be a promising new ranker today, someone who could shake up the entire system. The girl opens the door and says, The next rising star might be in this room. Inside, the room is packed with applicants, all here for the adventurer ranking registration. Luke is surprised. It's already the third round of the exam, and it's still this crowded? The girl explains, Usually, the turnout is smaller. But 2 months ago, Azaban Forest was added to the danger zone ranking. That's why it's packed. She adds that there are several promising candidates this time. One of them is Al Darkus, currently ranked 753 in the mercenary category. He's the leader of the Red Wolf Mercenary Corps and a top rookie in the country. Another is Eddie Markman, ranked 402 in the archer category. The Markman family is renowned for its archery. Eddie's father once held the number 2 spot, and his older brother is currently ranked number 7. There are even rumors that, despite his young age, Eddie's arrow speed ranks in the double digits, signaling a bright future. She's about to point out another candidate when Luke interrupts, correctly identifying him as a merchant ranker. He then goes on to name other promising candidates and their respective categories, including knight, sailor, and even a guide ranker. The girl is stunned. Everything Luke says is accurate. With a confident grin, Luke says, I am an appraiser, after all. Just one look, and I can usually tell what ranking field someone belongs to. Luke begins rambling about the adventurer rank, explaining how useful it is. one of the reasons so many people want to register. An adventurer rank is also required to access restricted areas like the Azaban Forest. Suddenly, the bell rings. Hearing it, the girl hurries to the counter and greets the new visitor. The customer is none other than Lo, who heard about the registration exam and came to the bureau. The girl confirms that he's in the right place and explains that rankings are managed by their appraisal bureau. She further elaborates that appraisers are dispatched across the land to assess rankers' achievements and abilities, determining their ranks accordingly. While rank updates can be made anywhere with an appraiser, the initial registration must be done at an official bureau. After listening to the explanation, Lo expresses his interest in registering for the adventurer ranking. The girl informs him that he's arrived just in time. The exam is about to begin, and asks if he would like to participate. Lo agrees, and she hands him a registration form. Lo fills it out and pays the fee of 3,000 mel. She then instructs him to wait in the examination room and informs him that his candidate number is 53. As Lo walks toward the room, Luke arrives at the counter and notices Lo passing by. Both are surprised to see someone so unfamiliar with the appraiser bureau. Luke remarks that there are still bumpkins out there who don't know how the system works. The girl then asks Luke to help her with the preparation for the exam. He agrees, saying that doing some desk work once in a while isn't so bad. After some time, the preliminary exam begins. The girl explains that there will be 3 parts: a written test, a practical test, and a final test, details of which will be given right before it begins. Candidates' overall scores will determine whether they pass or fail. She adds that even if someone underperforms in one section, strong performance in the others may still secure a passing score. She encourages everyone not to give up. Luke distributes the answer sheets, and the written exam begins. Many candidates struggle with the questions. Once time is up, the girl announces that the results will be released in 2 hours, after which candidates will proceed to the practical test. She collects the answer sheets and heads to the office, asking Luke to help her grade them. Luke agrees happily, and they begin grading. While checking the papers, Luke comes across the test from candidate number 53, Lo. He remembers him as the guy with the lifeless look in his eyes. But when he sees Lo's test, Luke is shocked. All of the answers are wrong. 2 hours later, the candidates gather in the forest for the practical test, which involves hunting and collecting specific items listed on the provided form. Each item has an associated point value, and candidates may aim for higher scores if they choose. However, fighting between participants is strictly prohibited, and item ownership is determined by whoever touches the item first. Following the explanation, candidates rush off to claim the items they are most familiar with. Back at the observation area, the girl relaxes, finally enjoying a moment of free time. She asks Luke how many candidates he thinks will pass. Luke estimates that about half will make it through. Watching their movements, he adds that they all seem fairly competent. The girl then asks if any candidate has caught his eye. Luke, however, says that no one has stood out yet. Meanwhile, Al is the first candidate to return with an item. He submits a regil, or worth 120 points. The girl asks if he intends to continue collecting more items, but Al decides to stop. He's already met the passing criteria. She explains that gathering more points could place him at a higher starting rank upon registration. But Al shrugs it off. He doesn't care about the adventurer ranking, since his main profession is mercenary work. Soon after, Eddie arrives, having retrieved a tail feather from a flock bird, earning 180 points. Eddie is surprised to learn that the flock bird's feather carries such a high point value. After all, they often eat flock bird at home. Al mocks him, saying he's bragging over a mere bird feather. Annoyed, Eddie fires back, saying he wasn't bragging. Flock birds fly silently at 500 kilometers per hour and can't be seen with the naked eye. Their playful bickering continues, each mocking the other, which amuses both the girl and Luke, who enjoy witnessing their prideful rivalry. Suddenly, everyone goes silent when Lo arrives, dragging a full-grown grizzly bear behind him. The other candidates are stunned. Lo calmly asks the girl if he can submit the entire beast. The girl, flustered, stammers before confirming that submitting it whole is acceptable. Lo is awarded 300 points. Whispers begin to spread among the other candidates, all wondering how Lo could have possibly taken down a grizzly. Luke, staring at the bear, remarks that Lo could identify the beast despite having performed so poorly on the written test. Lo explains that grizzly bears used to attack his village frequently, so he's familiar with their appearance. Then Luke overhears one of the older, black-haired candidates quietly describing what he saw. Lo had drawn his sword, and in the very next moment, the red grizzly bear was already taken down. Luke falls silent, now observing Lo with a more serious expression. An hour later, all candidates gather at the underground training facility. There, the girl explains that adventurers must be prepared not just for beasts, but also for humans. Since adventurers often explore uncharted, unpopulated lands, they frequently encounter threats like bandits and pirates. In such situations, survival depends on strength and quick decision-making. She announces that the final test will be a mock battle, candidate versus candidate. She reassures them that the test is designed to assess their abilities, not to determine pass or fail. Wins and losses won't affect the final outcome. Eddie immediately understands why the Bureau didn't reveal this final test earlier. If they had, participants might have tried to sabotage one another during the practical phase. One of the candidates walks over to Owl and challenges him to a fight, mocking Owl for picking up a rock during the practical exam. He also ridicules the mercenary rankings, calling Owl a third-rate ranker. As the man swings a punch, Owl swiftly draws his sword and strikes him with the sheath, knocking him unconscious in one hit. The girl decides not to intervene, knowing the man was already unlikely to pass. Other candidates murmur about how foolish it was to pick a fight with someone of Owl's caliber. As the mock battles continue, the girl begins to wonder who could be a worthy opponent for Owl. At that moment, Luke steps forward and asks her to let him choose a matchup for Lo. She agrees. The mock battles proceed, and finally, Match 8 is announced. Owl and Eddie versus Lo. Owl raises an eyebrow, wondering if the administrator has lost his mind. Eddie is visibly annoyed, feeling insulted and underestimated. Hearing the match details, the girl turns to Luke, asking if he's really okay with this decision. Luke responds confidently, "If my eyes aren't mistaken, Lo is on a monster's level." Owl and Eddie face off against Lo, all three standing in the arena, ready to begin their match. The spectators hold their breath, eager to see how this clash will unfold. Owl draws his sword, prepared to take on Lo. He is the leader of the Red Wolf mercenary group, a rising force that made headlines last year after eradicating the Camorra Mafia, ranked 62nd among all criminal organizations. It's rumored that Owl single-handedly defeated 7 of their top executives, including the boss. Eddie, on the other hand, hails from the prestigious Markman family of archers, gifted with natural talent passed down from his father, who once held the number 2 rank in archery. Eddie himself was registered in the rankings at just 5 years old. There isn't an archer in the country unfamiliar with this prodigy, whose skills uphold the Markman legacy. And now, facing these 2 extraordinary rankers is Lo, a complete unknown. The black-haired girl announces the start of the match. As soon as the signal is given, Eddie fires an arrow toward Lo. Without hesitation, Lo dodges and immediately rushes at Owl, who is also charging in. Their swords clash, and they exchange blows with such intensity that the other candidates can only see swirling dust and hear the ringing of steel. Amid the flurry of attacks, Lo finds an opening and pushes Owl back. Just as he's about to strike, Eddie fires another arrow at him. In one swift motion, Lo breaks the arrow in half, one piece flying dangerously close to another candidate. Owl and Eddie regroup. Owl realizes that Lo is on par with the top-ranked knights. Eddie agrees, admitting that he's never encountered anyone like Lo before. Lo then casually asks if they're ranked in other categories as well. Eddie replies that he is currently ranked 402nd in archery, and Owl says he's ranked 753rd in the mercenary category. Upon hearing this, Lo begins to release green-colored prana, deciding to defeat them both to enter the 3-digit ranking range. Lo's prana floods the entire underground arena, shocking both Eddie and Owl. Even Luke is stunned. It's his first time seeing prana with the naked eye, and it's overwhelming. Despite the pressure, Eddie doesn't back down. He tells Lo that rankings aren't just about occupation. He then reveals that while he's 402nd in archery, he's also 78th in the sniper ranking, which is focused on precision shooting. As Eddie prepares to fire, Lo vanishes in a burst of speed and instantly knocks him unconscious. Lo then turns his attention to Owl, who stands frozen in disbelief. He looks into Lo's eyes and feels a surge of fear. As Lo prepares to strike the final blow, Owl raises his hands and surrenders, pleading, "Wait, I have work after this exam. I can't afford to get knocked out like Eddie." Lo lowers his sword. Owl steps back, thinking to himself that Lo is a monster and wondering what his true identity is. The other candidates are equally stunned. None of them can believe Lo just defeated two three-digit rankers with such ease. The black-haired girl announces Lo as the winner. Meanwhile, Luke bolts from the arena, rushing to a nearby room with a computer. He searches Lo's profile, trying to uncover any background information. But the database shows nothing, no prior ranking experience, no affiliations. The Bureau has no records on him. Luke speaks to himself, realizing, that makes sense. He's from a remote village. No ties to any criminal group or special organization. Excitement rushes through him. He's found a hidden gem. Luke dashes back out and rushes to Lo, eager to ask if he can become his exclusive appraiser. But to his surprise, several other appraisers have already approached Lo with offers. Frustrated, Luke realizes he was too late. He scolds the other appraisers, reminding them they're supposed to conduct background checks before making an exclusive offer. Lo, unaware of what's happening, looks confused. Luke quickly explains, an exclusive appraiser is someone dedicated to you. They update your ranking regularly. Normally, rankers must wait for the Bureau to dispatch an appraiser for evaluations. But with an exclusive appraiser, you can update your rank anytime, anywhere. He adds that it's especially helpful for ranked adventurers who are constantly on the move. Luke continues, explaining that appraisers carry a special device called the ranking telegram, or RankTel for short. It allows both appraiser and ranker to receive real-time updates and ranking information. If you want to rise efficiently through the ranks, Luke says, you'll need an exclusive appraiser. Lo considers this and then says, I have one condition. Luke's eyes widen. Anything? Lo asks, can you get me into the top 10 of the adventurer rankings? All the appraisers are shocked to hear Lo's bold demand. Even though his swordsmanship is impressive, they know it isn't enough to reach the top 10 in the adventurer rankings. Without saying another word, Lo turns and leaves the Bureau. Seeing this, Luke runs after him. Once outside, Luke stops him and asks why he wants to reach the top 10 in the adventurer rankings. But Lo doesn't respond. Luke persists, insisting that he wants to become Lo's exclusive appraiser and promises to help guide him to that goal. Lo glances at him and resumes walking, replying, I don't want to drag a kid like you into something dangerous. Startled, Luke fires back, I'm an appraiser first, then a kid. And besides, you're just a kid too. Lo then reveals that even if Luke weren't a kid, he still wouldn't hire him. I don't want to involve others in my problems, he says. Luke, frustrated, yells, there's something I have to do too. A mission I need to accomplish, even if it costs me my life. And to complete it, I want to join hands with you. Hearing this, Lo turns back and looks at Luke again. This time, seeing a reflection of himself in the boy. Lo finally responds, I also have something I must do. The moment brings quiet understanding between them, and Luke smiles, feeling that they've finally reached common ground. They formally introduce themselves and shake hands. Later that night, Luke takes Lo to a small rental place he arranged for a few days. He says they can use it as their base of operations. Lo thanks him and compliments his resourcefulness. Luke brushes it off, tossing his bag onto the bed, but then his frustration erupts. He vents about how, when they shook hands earlier, Lo only agreed to a probation period for hiring him as an exclusive appraiser. Lo apologizes, saying he's just being cautious. Luke, now fired up, declares he'll prove himself within the week, and that soon, Lo will be the one begging him to stay. Luke even mockingly imitates Lo, saying, Please, Luke, become my exclusive appraiser. Lo coolly responds, that would be nice, as if it's someone else's concern. Luke rolls his eyes. You're great with a sword, but for everything else, you're just zoning out. Lo chuckles and admits, I used to hear that a lot. Just then, Luke receives a notification on his RankTel device. He checks it and informs Lo, your test results are in. You're ranked 2,728th. He congratulates Lo on passing the registration exam, adding, getting into the 2000s right at registration is actually amazing. But Lo doesn't look pleased. He had hoped to enter the three-digit ranks. After all, both of his opponents in the test, Owl and Eddie, were ranked in the hundreds. Luke explains, the adventurer ranking has way more participants than other categories. The competition is brutal. No matter how strong you are, there's a limit to how high your starting rank can be. He then reveals that aside from occupational rankings, there are many other types, like sword speed, for example. Your sword speed is ranked 58th, Luke says. Lo, still uninterested, replies with a quiet, I see. But Luke is amazed. From an appraiser's perspective, that ranking is the embodiment of talent. Lo asks if Owl and Eddie also have different rankings. Luke checks and shows him that they do, multiple, in fact. He informs Lo that one person can hold multiple rankings, though it means more responsibility and work. Lo shrugs, I'm not looking for work. Luke laughs, same here. But I feel like I'm starting to understand you a little, even though we just met. Then, in a more serious tone, Luke concludes, basically, you want to climb into the top 10 of the adventurer rankings as fast as possible, because you want to reach the island of the gods. Lo asks how Luke knew about his goal, and Luke explains that he simply anticipated it. Only the top 10 adventurer rankers have the privilege to enter the island of the gods. Luke then asks if Lo will share the reason behind his goal once the probation period ends. Lo agrees without hesitation. Delighted, Luke says that when the time comes, he'll also share his own circumstances. Lo nods, thinking it's fair for both of them. It's good to be fair, Luke says, but my circumstances might be a little hard to explain to someone who just registered in the rankings. Then, in a more serious tone, Luke adds, I'm chasing the darkness within the ranking system. Lo doesn't quite understand what he means, but Luke decides to drop the topic for now. Instead, Luke asks how Lo became so strong and where he learned his swordsmanship. Lo casually reveals that he became the disciple of a knight named Adel a year ago. Luke is stunned. Adel? As in the Adel? The #1 ranked knight in the world. But Lo doesn't see what the fuss is about. I've only been his disciple for 1 year. Luke is nearly speechless. That's exactly why it's a big deal. Adel is famous for refusing to teach anyone. So many people have begged him for instruction, and he rejected every single one. If there were a ranking for most disciples rejected, Adel would be ranked first. Luke goes on to share a rumor that Adel is waiting to pass on his title to the next generation's top-ranked knight. Because of that, countless knights are desperately trying to climb the rankings. If anyone finds out you're his disciple, they'll faint, Luke adds. Lo, still indifferent, wonders aloud if Adel is really that amazing. After all, he once beat him in a sword duel. Luke is completely floored. Impossible, he exclaims, immediately diving into the Bureau's data system. But even after thoroughly checking, he finds no previous ranking data for Lo. This is indeed his first time registering. Luke begins to wonder if Thule is just an alias. Lo recalls a moment from the past when Adel asked for his surname. At the time, Lo didn't have one. Adel then suggested he adopt the name Thule if he wanted to take the shortest path to the island of the gods. He warned that the risks would be high, but if Lo succeeded, the clues he needed might come to him naturally. So, Lo tells Luke, Thule is the name of my precious family. Hearing the sincerity in Lo's voice, Luke is moved. Thank you, he says, genuinely touched by Lo's sense of family. Feeling tired, Luke sits on the bed and decides to remove his hat. To Lo's surprise, Luke is revealed to be a woman. Lo is completely stunned. Wait, you're a girl. Luke is equally startled by his reaction. Well, so am I. Lo quickly apologizes, but she pokes his forehead and says, a simple apology isn't enough. Luke is reading a newspaper in the library when Lo comes downstairs after waking up. Lo mentions that he's going to get some water, but Luke doesn't quite understand what he means. After a brief greeting, the two decide to head out for breakfast. They're about to embark on a long journey, and since today marks their first step, Luke suggests holding a strategy meeting to plan their path toward reaching the top 10 in the adventurer rankings. They sit together at a cafe for breakfast, and Luke begins explaining the basics. She suggests that if Lo wants to raise his adventurer ranking, he should focus on achieving notable accomplishments. Land development and exploration are fundamental achievements. Although these can be done voluntarily, Luke recommends taking on official requests, as many people seek the strength of adventurers for tasks such as gathering, guarding, or investigation. Requests not only help build reputation but also offer rewards, making them perfect for beginners. Luke adds that they can also receive quests from the Accreditation Bureau or, depending on the country, from the Guild Union. However, since Lo has hired Luke as his exclusive appraiser, she can conveniently access requests through the rank tell. Lo finds the rank tell incredibly convenient and compliments it. Proudly, Luke begins boasting about its benefits, emphasizing that Lo would gain even more advantages now that she's his exclusive appraiser. While eating, Lo asks if there are any current requests in the rank tell that could help raise his ranking. Luke replies that he needs to take on high-difficulty requests. For missions handled by the Accreditation Bureau, the rank tell even indicates how much each request can impact the adventurer's rank once completed. Luke shows Lo a list of requests, and Lo immediately points to the one at the very top, a high-difficulty quest. It's a level 7 danger mission to retrieve hidden treasure from the Rokiana underwater temple. Luke instantly protests, warning that it's impossible for someone of Lo's current rank. But Lo calmly responds that they must try to assess the risk themselves. Despite Luke's protests, Lo insists on taking the quest, arguing that if he plans to challenge the Island of the Gods, ranked number 1 in the danger zone, he can't afford to shy away from lesser quests. Luke, realizing how stubborn Lo is, decides she'll have to persuade him another way. In the middle of their discussion, a brown-haired man approaches and asks if they're having trouble. Luke immediately recognizes him. It's Laud, a powerful adventurer ranked 11th. Lo asks who he is, and Luke explains that Laud is just one step away from qualifying to enter the Island of the Gods. Remembering what Adel once told him, that the top rankers are monsters, Lo carefully studies Laud, trying to gauge his strength. Luke then gets an idea and boldly asks Laud for a favor, to fight Lo in a duel and show him the gap in their abilities. Later, at the underground training facility, Lo and Luke wait for Laud. When he finally arrives, he brings a weapon, surprised that Lo actually agreed to the duel. Lo awkwardly tries to speak formally, which clearly doesn't come naturally to him. Laud, amused, compliments Luke, saying she previously updated his rank and calling her an amazing appraiser. He adds that Luke not only possesses vast knowledge, but also the conviction to provide accurate and fair assessments, something rare among appraisers today. Since the request came from Luke, Laud agrees to help. He also understands that Luke wants the stubborn Lo to realize the true scale of the world and where he currently stands. As Lo stares at Laud, he senses the overwhelming pressure of a top-tier ranker. He knows that if he charges carelessly, Luke shouts, telling Lo that this is a good chance to understand just how vast the world really is. But Lo, recalling the tragedies of his past, releases his prana and replies, "I already know how vast it is." The battle begins, the 2,728th ranked Lo versus the 11th ranked Laud. They clash. Lo swings his sword, but Laud effortlessly dodges, surprising him. Lo had channeled prana into the slash, yet it was avoided so easily. He wonders if he should be coating his hands and feet in prana to increase agility. As the fight continues, Laud becomes intrigued. He starts to believe that Lo's sword style is directly inherited from a secret technique, one that is traditionally passed on to only one person per generation. How could Adel have passed this on to a kid like him? Laud wonders. While Laud is lost in thought, Lo spots an opening and moves to attack from behind. But Laud blocks the strike with ease, mocking Lo with a smirk. "You're pretty relaxed for a guy in a fight." They continue trading blows. Laud notes that Lo might even have more prana than he does, but what truly intrigues him is Lo's shimmer. Curious, he asks Lo about his tribe. But Lo doesn't understand the question. Laud suspects Lo is playing dumb. The shimmer of prana isn't something one can acquire later in life. It's innate, tied to lineage. Determined to uncover the truth, Laud decides to get serious. He tells Lo to use his art. Lo, confused, admits he doesn't know what that means. Laud begins chanting, and a golden wave of prana bursts forth from his body. He's now fully activating the arts of the Broward tribe, Zen. Laud then warns Lo, "If you don't use your art, you'll die."